Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We'll start with statements by the Foreign Minister Gideon Saar, and then we'll open it for questions. Please.
Good morning. Yesterday, Israel assumed the presidency of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. IRA was founded to preserve the memory of the Holocaust and combat anti-Semitism. We thank the United Kingdom, who finished their presidency yesterday. Chairman of Yad Vashem, Dani Dayan, will serve as IRA's chair during our term. The anti-Semitism that resulted in the Holocaust has not been eradicated from the world. On the contrary, over the past year and a half, we have witnessed its alarming rise, targeting both the Jewish people and the Jewish state. The new anti-Semitism attacks Israel's right to exist and its right to defend itself. I will host a conference of IRA in Jerusalem during the last week of May with foreign ministers from around the world. Saturday was the last day of the first phase in the framework to release our hostages. Israel had implemented its part, including the part with regard to humanitarian aid, fully until the last day. Israel said yes to the proposal of the American envoy, Steve Witkoff, to extend the temporary ceasefire. Unfortunately, Hamas had rejected the offer. Therefore, Israel stopped to enable the transfer of goods to Gaza Strip. Aid that goes to Hamas is not humanitarian. Unfortunately, the takeover of Hamas on commercials and goods turned it to an economic engine for Hamas. It became the number one income, budget income of Hamas in Gaza. With that money, they use for terror, to restore their abilities, and to get more young terrorists into their organization. I'm reminding what was said by President Biden in the beginning of the war. He said that aid will end if Hamas diverts or steals the assistance. Can we see it?
Yes, please.
And began to move from Egypt to Gaza. Let me be clear. If Hamas diverts or steals the assistance, they will have demonstrated once again that they have no concern for the welfare of the Palestinian people. And it will end. As a practical matter, it will stop the international community from being able to provide this aid.
Thank you.
Same things, or similar things, were said by the former Secretary of State, Antony Blinken. And you know that they are not only taking over the aid, they are also shooting civilians that try to have access to it. And they use it as an engine to continue the war against Israel. This cannot continue, and this will not continue. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll open it for questions. Yes. Hi.
Minister, good morning. Dan Williams from Bloomberg. Channel 12 News reported yesterday that Israel has a deadline of 10 days, 9 days from today, at which it will resort to war if the diplomatic impasse doesn't end. Is this true? Has Israel set a date for a resumption of the war? Second question, what are your hopes for the Arab League meeting?
Who said that?
Channel 12. 12, you have
They are responsible for that.
Does Israel have a deadline?
If we will want to do that, we will declare it. If Channel 12 do it or any other channel, they are responsible for it, not the government of Israel.
Does Israel have a deadline for a resumption of the
I think I answered your question.
Thank you.
If we will want to do it, we will do it.
Thank you. Yes, next question, please.
Mr. Tia from the Associated Press. Can you give us a sense of how progress has been made on implementing Trump's plan for the population of Gaza? Have there been discussions with certain countries about moving the population there, and if so, what countries?
I don't think I can report, at least on that stage. These negotiations are mainly done by the U.S., and I think it is fair that they will reveal it. I said in the past also here that we support the initiative, and as long as it is connected to the free will of potential immigrants on one hand, and there is on the other hand a country which is ready to accept, it is humane, moral, and the most practical thing to do, and we'll see it by time.
Thank you. Yes, please. Yes.
Stopping the humanitarian aid to Gaza, and do you see, is this measure allow the international humanitarian aid? As the foreign minister, how will you explain this to the international community?
I just explained that. I just explained that aid that goes to Hamas is not humanitarian. As I emphasized, it's a tool, it's a vehicle, it's a mean to continue the war against Israel. It's part today, the major part of Hamas incomes in Gaza Strip. And as President Biden said in the past, if that will be the circumstances, we will have to stop it. I don't know of any other country in the world that is being asked to finance the war against itself. So as long as we had the commitment during the first phase of the framework to release our hostages, we did it in that framework. Last day was Saturday. We implemented that fully. We don't have any commitment now to finance terror against ourselves.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Thank you. Samuel Farid, how do you see the rapprochements between the Turks and the Kurds and its consequences in Syria?
I've said in the past that it is expected that minorities of the rights in Syria will be respected, and of course it includes the Kurds. You know, a couple of times Turkey invaded to the north of Syria, and they're still present there in various ways. I express once again our expectation, which I believe is the national community expectations, that rights of the minorities in Syria, including the Kurds, the Druze, the Christians, the Alawites, and others, will be fully respected.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Does Israel defend and support territorial integrity of Syria? And as a follow-up, there were reports in the Israeli media, Israel is in contact with Russia and the US to minimize the Turkish influence in Syria.
I didn't get the second question, so I'll answer the first, and then you'll repeat the second. The question is not about territorial integrity. Until the coup d'etat in Damascus, nothing happened from our point of view. until the disengagement agreement from 1974 was breached during a weekend when armed forces entered to the buffer zone illegally, also attacked UNDOF forces. Our interest in our border is to have a quiet border, not to have another border of terrorism, to have Islamist groups on our border will be dramatically dangerous for Israel. We had that experience with Lebanon, we had that experience with Gaza Strip. I think the best way to guarantee a peaceful border is to avoid its possibility. All the activity we are doing there, which is very limited, is connected to that. We want a safe border, we want a quiet border. We have our communities in the Golan Heights is very close to the border there. We also know that there is an intention of Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hamas to attack us from this border, to create it as another terror border for Israel, and we will not allow it, and we will be prepared. We learned our lesson from October 7, and we will not allow another October 7 from any front.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Israel these days is very in sync with the Trump administration, but on Syria, they seem to be taking a different direction in Washington. They're talking about sanctions relief. What kind of coordination, cooperation is Israel having with Washington on Syria on this front, where they seem a lot more optimistic about the new regime?
Well, first of all, we are discussing that. We discussed it with Secretary Rubio when he was in Israel, and it is ongoing discussions between the two governments. I won't speak on behalf of the American administration. I can only speak on behalf of the government of Israel. We say what we see. We try to be very honest. We care for the minorities. We care for our security. We hope to see positive developments there. We try to stay realistic as much as we can.
Thank you. Yes, over there.
Amaravati, NBC News. President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine obviously was facing substantial pressure and quite a dramatic showdown with the President of the United States and the Vice President of the White House. I wanted to ask why, after President Zelensky gave such fulsome support to Israel following the October 7th attacks, did Israel decide to vote with the United States and Russia?
What kind of support?
Fulsome, huge support.
Can you remind me one vote that Ukraine voted for Israel in the General Assembly of the UN? Can you do it on one vote from hundreds? Can you do it?
No.
So okay. So let me put the facts. We supported Ukraine. We voted for Ukraine. We voted for Ukraine time and again for the sovereignty, for their territorial integrity, condemning the Russian invasion to Ukraine. We did it. They didn't. This is the truth. Sometimes they abstained. That was the best. So let's first speak with regard to the facts as we know them. Let's not invent alternative facts and reality. And everything I've said now, including our condemnation for the Russian invasion to Ukraine, is still our position. We hadn't changed our position. We thought it is good to give a chance to the initiative of the American presidents to bring peace after 3 years of war there. This is why we voted with the United States in the UN. But I think that even now, to compare the record of votes of Israel to the record of votes of Ukraine on both issues, I think we voted much better.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Nathan Oberheim, New York Times. On this topic of peace, two questions. The first is regarding Egypt. Why are we seeing the comments such as Ambassador Leiter in the DC and Minister Katz, Defense Minister Katz, about Egypt, sort of implying that maybe Egypt is rallying up its troops in the Sinai against Israel, kind of inflicting fear among the Israeli public from Egypt, while Egypt, at least saying that they were on the side of Israel, and even the Israeli intelligence establishment is saying that there's no such fear. That's like the first question. How do you square that? And have you apologized or said anything to the Egyptian ambassador in this regard on these kind of lines of inquiry? The second question is, Minister Dermer said reportedly yesterday or 2 days ago that if Hamas will put down its weapons, there is a possibility that Israel will strike some sort of a peace accord with Palestinians.
Did you hear that from Minister Dermer?
I said, as it was reported.
Did you hear that? There was a report. Okay, since I saw the same report, I called the Minister Dermer and asked him, did you tell that? And he said, of course not a word. So that's about the second question. About the first question, we will deal on the issue. We are dealing and we will deal on the issue with the Egyptians. I don't do it in the media. We do it with the Egyptians.
Thank you. Yes. If you can present yourself, please.
Relations with Egypt are important for us.
He was just here. The representatives of Egypt were just at the office earlier today, right?
Yeah, I'll see him, and I'm gathering Muslim ambassadors for the Ramadan. When? So I'll see him very soon.
Sorry, James again from Reuters. I'm just going back to a question which was asked earlier. Have you got any comment to make on the meeting of Arab League in Cairo today?
Well, I might comment after it will be held. I might comment, see the results, and that will be wiser.
What do the results need to look for to give Israel an option out of the crisis? How can this meeting be useful?
We would like them to adopt Israelis' positions on the relevant issues, but I'm not 100% sure that will happen.
Thank you. Someone will do that. Yes, please.
I'm Nikolyokin, a freelance journalist. Do you want to condemn Ukraine over praising the people from the Holocaust time that were collaborators, like Bandera with the Nazis, and was responsible for so many Jews that were killed?
Who said that?
About Bandera or about what?
Yeah, the quote
That's
you.
Yad Vashem. That's the records there.
First of all, we condemned each statement like that, but I hadn't
my
heard.
Question, I didn't finish. They renamed the streets, even the street, the boulevard going to the Babi Yar, that you know, of course, in the name of Bandera, the one that was responsible for the Babi Yar, and also the monuments of the Red Army, they're taking them down, and they're putting monuments of Bandera, Evich, and Israel says nothing about that for years now.
First of all, I didn't know about it. I will check it, and you know that. You probably know that. Probably know that because you asked that. But it's your knowledge. That's clear. But we will check it, and if there is a necessity, we will publish a condemnation. No problem about it. I want to check it. We'll do that. I think that we have a commitment to the memory of the Holocaust. We have a commitment to battle against anti-Semitism, phenomena of neo-Nazis, Holocaust denial, and this is very important to us. So I will instruct to check it, and if it is necessary, we'll condemn it, no doubt.
Thank you. Yes, please.
From France 24, question on the operation Iron Wall. You've said before that it has to be temporary, like it's due to be temporary, yet the Minister of Defense has asked the Army...
What should be temporary? I didn't refer to that, but of course this is a military operation in a place which is very problematic. There is a huge effort. We see it also in the intelligence of Iran to bring huge amounts of weapons and money to what some call the West Bank and we call Judea and Samaria, mainly to these refugees camps, and trying to inflame a new wave of terrorism and open a new front against Israel from there. And this is the reason why we are active there. It's a self-defense activity. It might take time, but this is what it is. We hope to. Still hope we want to do that, but we have to do that. Just a very short time ago, we saw 5 buses in the center of our country. That 3 of them exploded, and 2. Fortunately enough, we didn't have casualties, but it could have been totally different. So this is why we are active there. You see also today so many terrorist attacks. We know and we learn that it is better to act before and to initiate than to wait for the terrorists. This is what we do there.
We have time for a few more questions, Minister? Yeah. Okay. Yes, please.
About Egypt,
Yeah.
do you confirm there is a military buildup in Sinai? And how do you see this military buildup, this Egyptian military buildup, of course? Second, do you consider a change in the Camp David Accords? And I'm thinking about the MFO in Sinai, the Nutrition Force.
I said we will discuss it. We are discussing it, and we will discuss it with Egypt. I think it is better to discuss it with Egypt rather than discussing it through the press conference. This is what we do, and this is what we will do.
Yes, please.
Can you just explain, clarify, the ceasefire agreement in January had a provision at the end of phase 1 that both sides would continue to negotiate phase 2. Does the January agreement not exist anymore?
Exist, of course. But what happened? We finished phase 1. This is why we stopped to implement, because the 42 days were finished. We are ready to continue to phase 2. We will come with our positions, which probably different from the positions of Hamas. But in order to extend the time, the framework, we need an agreement to release more hostages. No free meals is a very known principle.
It wasn't in the original. The original agreement says that the provisions for phase 1 can continue as long as
There is no. You don't know the agreement. The agreement, and there is, by the way, also side letter of the Americans of the previous administration. There is no automaticity between the stages of the agreement. According to the agreement, we can resume military actions after phase 1. We are ready to continue to discuss. We are ready to extend the time. In order to extend the time, we only say we want to have hostages released. American special envoy, the American special envoy Steve Witkoff, came with a proposal, and he proposed to have half of them released at the beginning, and if negotiations will be successful, to release the other half at the end. This was a suggestion, can be any other suggestion, but the principle is you want to have ceasefire, you want to have the advantages of it, you should release hostages. They ain't going to get it without releasing hostages. This is very clear. No, it's not. It's not, because it's totally not a change. The agreement is we can resume military. We don't have an agreement on phase 2. We demand total demilitarization of Gaza Strip, Hamas and Islamic Jihad out, and give us our hostages. If they agree to that, we can implement tomorrow. We will only have to discuss the ratio for the terrorists that want to get out from our jails. Okay? It was not agreed in the agreement. It was left to be agreed on phase 2. There is no shelf agreement on phase 2. There's nothing in it. Okay, so this is the situation. And since there is no shelf agreement on phase 2, we said we are ready to negotiate on phase 2, and in the meantime, we are ready to extend the framework of the temporary ceasefire. But we have only one condition: our hostages. We want to release hostages. If it is not agreed, so it is not agreed.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, please.
Is there no concern that the cutting off of aid to Gaza currently is going to worsen Israel's positions at the ICC and the ICJ?
First of all, I think you know what our position with regard to these processes. The process in the ICC, they didn't wait for that with the arrest warrants, yeah? They brought it on November. So altogether it is political. It is not connected to the facts. It is not connected to law. It is against the basic principles, because they can't deal with a country which is not a member state in the ICC and hadn't signed the Rome Convention. And this is the case of Israel. And this is why, by the way, the U.S. president issued an executive order against the ICC, because America is also not a member state in the ICC. So altogether, these organizations are not working according to the law. They are working according to political considerations. We just saw, by the way, yesterday I think there was a new president that was elected, the ICJ, Japanese president. That reminds me that the previous president, that was Israel Chief Justice, was the new Lebanese Prime Minister, the one that in his first statement as Prime Minister called Israel the enemy. So this is kind of judge we had, and this is the amounts of the expectations we have from the ICJ or the ICC. But as I described it, it is not a coincidence that the former president of the U.S., Joe Biden, former Secretary of State Antony Blinken, said if Hamas will take over the aid, it will be stopped. Because then it turned to a mean in the terrorist campaign of Hamas against us. So it's actually a request from us to finance Hamas, finance terrorist activities and military activity against us. I think it's a kind of request that you wouldn't see from any other country in the world.
Thank you. Yes, please.
The day after plan for Gaza, for now, is the plan that Trump wants to adapt in Gaza. So the U.S. wants to take over Gaza and rebuild it. How do you find your counterparts' reaction, especially in the Western capitals, to this plan? Are you working in order to implement? Are you in diplomatic
I don't think it is my job to describe comments on other capitals on President Trump's plan. I brought the Israeli view. I think it's a positive, new, original idea. I put two principles, which are the key principles. One, free will, free choice of the immigrant. The free choice that is given to any person in the world should be given to the Palestinians. And people must start to understand that Palestinians are also human beings, and they deserve the free choice that any other person on earth deserves, like someone who is going from Syria or Afghanistan or any other state in that situation. Okay? Second, of course, there is a need for countries who will be ready to accept. So if these two conditions will be met, it will be constructive, moral, humane, and good.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Why won't you accept?
אני מוכן לענות לעוד שאלות, אבל מכאלה שעוד לא שאלו.
If there is,
לא צריך מקצה
if there is, yeah, we'll take this one, but if there's someone who didn't ask a question, we'll take this.
Why won't you accept then Gaza in Israeli territory? That's one question. And second,
We don't have any intention.
of accepting Gaza on Israeli
No.
territory. Second, I just want to
Unf-
criticize the Israeli.
During the years we took, according to processes, and we found out during the second Intifada that a huge number of terror attacks in Israel done by those who enter or relatives of those who enter through this process. So it ain't going to happen again.
Okay, and I just want to understand how you see the ceasefire agreement. For you, the phase 2 was a temporary ceasefire, the phase 1 was a temporary ceasefire, and the phase 2 was a permanent ceasefire?
There are three stages in the agreement. Eventually, if everything will turn well, it will be permanent. It was in the agreement itself a permanent ceasefire. In the agreement, it's not something that I am inventing right now. That was a thing that was written in the agreement.
Thank you. Thank you. That will be all for this week. Thank you, everyone.
You saw probably an internal ceasefire, but it was a temporary one.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, thanks very much. I'll walk you out.
Safe, nothing much to do. Safe, nothing much to do.